the price by 25 cents a litre, $20 a fill-up, and $1,200 between now and the end of the year. Higher grocery prices, as Carney has given us the worst grocery price inflation in the G7, with industrial carbon taxes on farm equipment, fertilizer, and food processing, new ridiculous anti-plastic regulations that make food spoil earlier, and inflationary deficits. Mothers are forced to turn back goods at the checkout because their bank account is empty before their grocery carts are. Kids, a quarter of kids go to school hungry after 11 years of Liberal government. And, in fact, this just out, a big breaking story in British Columbia. The United Way did a poll that found that over a third of British Columbians, 35%, have had to change their diets to avoid foods that have become more expensive. 23%, roughly a quarter, said they or a member of their household had to reduce the size of their meals over the past months because they can't afford to eat. A third are stressed that they are more stressed than they were 2 years ago about the cost of groceries, and so that shows that it's worse today than when Carney took office. A third of people say that they're worse off under Carney than they were even under the disastrous Justin Trudeau. And now, when people get home from the grocery store with their bank accounts empty, stressed out from the 2 or 3 jobs they have to do, they get taxed again. If they want to have a drink, Carney's raised the excise tax on beer, liquor, and wine. And if they turn on their Netflix to watch, well, what did we learn this week? The Liberal-appointed CRTC wants to increase taxes on your streaming services. A 15% tax on Canadians streaming Netflix and other online services. A tax on your drink, a tax on the show that you're watching while you enjoy that drink, a tax when you get in the car in the morning to drive to work, a tax on your paycheck. Everywhere you turn, Mark Carney is in your pocket. Conservatives oppose the Netflix tax, and we call on the Carney Liberals to reverse their tax increase and let Canadians enjoy their streaming in peace and affordability. But the reality is that nothing will change under Mark Carney, despite the illusions. It's more tax, more cost, more debt, more of the same. Mark Carney is just another Liberal. And Canadians see it with fleeing investment, jobs, and opportunity. Carney said that he was going to approve resource projects, yet he's kept every single anti-development law in place, C-69, the anti-pipeline law, C-48, the ban on shipping oil off our west coast, the industrial carbon tax, which he announced is going to go up 6 times higher under his plan than it was even under Trudeau. And while there have been many smiley face signing ceremonies for meaningless and unenforceable documents, he's also blocking 500 economic projects that are awaiting federal approvals. He should stop doing photo ops and signing ceremonies and get back to his desk and find a way to stop blocking 500 projects. And now we learn 14 leave-it-in-the-ground Liberal MPs have written a secret letter to Mark Carney telling him to continue blocking resources and raising taxes on Canadian industry. 14 Liberal MPs say the taxes are not even high enough. Now, in fairness to these MPs, I think they all assumed that Mark Carney meant what he wrote in his book Values, where he said that we had to leave half our oil in the ground and broaden and have bigger carbon taxes or the world would burn. That was what Carney wrote in his book Values. Now he's trying to pretend he believes otherwise, and his Liberal MPs are confused about what Mark Carney thinks. They can't even keep track of all the illusions. More division in Liberal ranks as Mark Carney says one thing to his leave-it-in-the-ground Liberal caucus and the opposite to the Canadian people. Not to mention, the Prime Minister stands to benefit from many of the anti-development, anti-oil and gas policies that he has promoted. Just the other day, he gave a speech here in the Vancouver area where he pushed for taxpayer subsidies for heat pumps. What do you know? Brookfield invests in heat pumps. You know, every time Mark Carney talks about giving another handout to corporate insiders, it profits him. His company, Brookfield, is the single biggest tax dodger in Canada, and so he benefits from that as well. It always seems that Liberal insiders and corporate power brokers benefit from Liberal policies and not ordinary hardworking Canadians. Look, 112,000 of Canadians have lost their jobs this year alone. Our unemployment is now a third higher than in the United States, the second highest in the G7. Our streets are overrun by crime and drugs as Carney keeps all of Trudeau's catch and release laws. And to be clear, Mark Carney has made plenty of announcements on crime. But guess what, Mark Carney? The criminals are not afraid of your announcements. They laugh at your announcements because they know it's all an illusion. Mark Carney, you have not changed a single word in the criminal code in the more than a year you've been in office, despite your promises and your endless announcements. You've kept every single law that Trudeau passed, and now Canadians are paying the price. The Carney Liberals voted against one law after another that would have changed things. For example, right now, they are actually threatening to make it worse. Newly published guidelines allow convicted criminals who have sentences of over 10 years to delay their deportation hearings and remain in Canada. That's right, the Liberal-dominated IRB, just read the Globe and Mail today, because of a story broken by Michelle Rempel, our Shadow Minister of Immigration. They're allowing people who've been convicted of violent assault, murder, rape, and others who are not citizens that are visiting our country stay even longer so that the streets will be even more dangerous than they are right now. Thank God that Michelle Rempel and the Conservatives are fighting back. We don't need to let foreign criminals remain in Canada. We need a government that will enforce the law already on the books and deport visitors convicted of serious crimes. Extortionists are shooting up businesses like the one behind me. Gangsters are threatening people who worked hard, followed the law, and built something in this country. Transnational repression continues to threaten Punjabi communities across the country. And after more than a decade of Liberal catch and release justice, all of this remains in place. The criminals know what you should all know, that Liberals lowered penalties and weakened bail. They know that Liberals removed mandatory prison time for serious violent crimes like drug trafficking, robbery with a gun, and extortion with a gun. The criminals know that Carney's kept all of Trudeau's policies, and the criminals know nothing will change as long as Liberals are in place. Violent crime is up 55%, homicides up, sexual assaults up, extortions way up. Here in BC, violent crime is up 50%, sexual assaults 95%, extortions 481% across the province. And of course, here in Surrey, in 1 year alone, 1 year of Mark Carney, we've had a 2,400% increase in extortions. We are standing outside of Nirwan Flooring, a business that was targeted by extortionists just 2 months ago. The week before, gunfire hit another business in the same complex. Yesterday, I did an interview at a local radio station where there are literally bullet holes in the studio. And then, not only that, a week and a half ago, upstairs in the same building, a young man was shot to death in an unrelated crime. There have been 3 fatal shootings in the Lower Mainland in less than a week. We've seen a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old kill. Mark Carney, this is an extortion crisis, and your laws, your Liberal laws, are responsible for it. It's time for you to pull your head out of the sand, reverse your laws, and lock up the criminals, kick out the terrorist visitors, and restore safety to the streets of Surrey and the Lower Mainland.
That's great.
This is not normal. Liberals have created this crisis with Bill C-5, which allows house arrest and lower penalties for extortion with a gun. They brought in Liberal bail, C-75, which requires police and judges release newly arrested criminals at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. In other words, Liberals have made it easier for criminals to get out of jail and harder for police to arrest them. Mark Carney has kept all of these laws in place, and he's making the laws even worse. Now he's introduced Liberal Bill C-16, which, if passed, would allow a get out of jail free card. Bill C-16 allows judges to exempt serious criminals from mandatory prison time if they feel like it. That means a criminal convicted of extortion with a restricted or prohibited firearm will not face the full force of the law because a judge will be allowed to exempt that extortionist from mandatory prison sentences under this new Carney Liberal bill. So this is not justice. This is not public safety. This is more crime, more chaos, more of the same. Carney is just another Liberal. Last August, I came to Surrey to announce a Conservative plan to crack down on extortion. I asked the Liberals, in the spirit of nonpartisanship, to steal my plan. They didn't. 9 months have gone by, and Mark Carney has done nothing other than hand out bagels and donuts on the beach in White Rock. So today I'm calling on Mark Carney and the Liberals to take 4 immediate actions to protect our people and take back our streets. First, end the get-out-of-jail-free card for violent criminals, including extortionists with illegal guns. That is embedded in C16, so that we can lock up criminals for real and for good. Second, impose mandatory prison sentences of 10 years for all extortion offenses when it involves a crime or a gun. If you threaten, terrorize, or extort innocent people, you should go to jail for a decade, and it should be mandatory. If you do it with a gun or a gang, you should go for even longer. Third, immediately find and deport every serious criminal, terrorist, and gang member, including Bishnoi gangsters, still in Canada. After relentless Conservative pressure, the Liberals finally listed the Bishnoi gang, but they have not expelled the Bishnoi gangsters. We need the police to have the powers to kick them all out. And I stand with Michelle Rempel-Garner in her calls to Mark Carney's Liberals that they should clearly direct government officials, including the IRB, to enforce consequences set out in law to deport non-citizens convicted of serious crimes in Canada, not keep them here longer. And let me be clear, Mark Carney should order the IRB to reverse this policy that allows criminals to stay in Canada when they're visiting and they've been convicted of serious offenses. And if the IRB will not do it, then every member of the IRB should be fired. We need to kick these criminals out of our country and make our lives safe, and we can't have a bunch of Liberal-appointed government officials overriding what the people want and the safety of our community. Either they kick the criminals out or they should be fired from their jobs. Fourth, pass the stand on guard principle. Self-defense is a right that all Canadians should have. If someone comes into your home, you should be allowed to use any force you believe necessary, including lethal force, to stop them, and the law should clearly indicate that you are acting within your right when you do that. And to the criminals who consider burglarizing a home, if you don't want to be harmed, then don't burglarize a home. It's a very simple solution to avoid getting hurt. Don't burglarize homes. If you do, the homeowner should have the right to take you out. Amend Section 34 of the Criminal Code so that force is presumed to be justified and allowed when used against an illegal intruder. Canadians should not have to wonder whether justice will punish them for defending their homes, their family, or their property from a criminal who broke in. Mark Carney's been talking tough, but when it comes to action, it's all an illusion. He sides with the same Liberal policies that favor criminals. His Liberals voted against C-381, which should have restored mandatory prison sentences for extortion. They voted against Conservative Bill C-220, which would have stopped judges from using immigration status to reduce criminal sentences. They voted against Conservative Bill C-246, which would have required criminals convicted of multiple sexual offenses to serve consecutive sentences. Mark Carney tells you everything is all right, yet you know that is not true. The Liberals stand with criminals while Conservatives stand with law-abiding citizens. Conservatives put violent criminals behind bars. Liberals create the catch-and-release chaos you see. Liberals cannot be counted on to bring safety. Conservatives, only Conservatives, will fight for safe streets to restore the promise of this country, that hard work gets you a beautiful life, a safe street to live on, a home that you own with property that is protected. That is the Conservative way. That is the Canadian promise. Let's make it happen. Keep the fight alive. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from reporters. Please identify yourself and your outlet. One question each.
Oh, sure. That would make a little splash. Thank you.
I'm Prateek Singh Mahal from Red FM. We are talking about the extortion. You're saying you have scaled out some of the precautionary measures we can take. But most of the suspects who have been arrested so far, they are first-time offenders. Even recently a suspect arrested in the shootings in last year, December. He carried out 3 extortion-related crimes, including 2 shootings in just 4 days. But those all 3 crimes were his first-time offenses. But so far, police has failed to arrest any of the organized criminals or organized gang to link them with all these shootings and extortions. So basically, they are arresting people, deporting them back. But this extortion threat is not stopping.
Well, you said that a lot of the offenders are first-time offenders. I don't care. They should get mandatory prison sentences of 10 years. Put them in jail for 10 years, and I bet a lot of them will be too frightened to actually commit the extortion in the first place. Secondly, we need to kick the terrorists, the transnational repressors, the extortionists, the gangsters out of our country. When they're here, they don't have a permanent residency or citizenship. They're visiting here, they commit a crime, they should immediately and automatically be deported without exception and without delay. And the government needs to direct the IRB to do that. If the IRB won't do it, then the members of the IRB should be fired and replaced with people who will enforce our laws and kick the criminals out. And what else did you have you wanted me to address, sir?
Don't you think this is a deeper problem when we see the suspects and those gangs operating them? There have been recent killings as well linked to the Bishnoi gang. There is talks about the Cricket Canada and other things. But don't you think it's a deeper problem which has not been addressed by the federal government or the police for right till now?
Yes, I mean, I think transnational repression is a real problem that Liberals have unleashed. The Liberals let the Bishnoi gangsters into Canada. They have refused to deport them from Canada. They have failed to crack down on organized crime that is running rampant, money laundering. British Columbia is one of the money laundering capitals of the world now because of weak Liberal law enforcement. Yes, I think it is a much bigger problem, but you will not get it fixed as long as the Carney Liberals are in power. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Poilievre. My name is Parmeet from Omni News. My question to you is, as you have called for harsher penalties, but convictions in extortion cases remain relatively rare. Isn't the bigger issue right now is low solve rate rather than sentencing? Your comment.
Well, I think it's both. I mean, part of the reason why you can't solve crimes in Canada is because the criminals are released, those who are convicted, those who are arrested are released, and then they just reoffend again and again and again. And the police are as a result, are overwhelmed, chasing down so many crimes that it's mathematically almost impossible to keep up. But that is largely the result of the Carney Liberals keeping in their laws on books that allow these criminals to go free. And there is other problem is that our police resources are being wasted on this gun grab, going after licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested firearms owners who are following the rules, and then they don't have the resources to go after the real criminals, like the extortionist that shot the building right behind me today. My message is to British Columbians, you don't have to live like this. You no longer have to accept the chaos that Carney Liberals have imposed on you. We as Conservatives have a real plan to lock up the criminals, to deport the visiting gangsters and terrorists, and to enforce the law.
We have seen deportations, not the actual sentencing. And comment on that. And do you believe foreign governments are doing enough to cooperate with Canada on extortion or other gang activity targeting Canadians?
No, I don't think they are. But I mean, this again is a new problem that the Liberals have brought. We didn't have foreign governments interfering in our country before. We didn't have transnational repression or assassinations. We didn't have Chinese police stations in our communities. The Liberals have made Canada a playground for foreign interference and international gangsterism. And Mark Carney has been a prime minister for a year now, and it's only getting worse, with extortions up 2,400% on his watch here in Surrey. So we need a government that will actually defend Canada against foreign interference shut down these crime syndicates, kick out the criminals who are visiting, and lock up the ones who are citizens. Thank you.
Hi there, Tanya Fletcher from CBC. So if you could also answer in French for my colleagues, that would be appreciated. Regarding Alberta's referendum, what are you willing to do to work with the government to make sure the country stays united? And is there something you think the Prime Minister should do to make the case that Alberta belongs in Canada?
Thank you for your question. Conservatives love Canada. I love Canada. We're going to fight for a united Canada every day in every way. We're going to reach out to Albertans in every corner of the province to make the case for our wonderful country. And we're going to do it through hope. We want Albertans to understand that they can have an even better future in our country, a country where their resources are unblocked, where their legitimate property, including their firearms, are respected, where their streets are once again safe with criminals locked up, where free enterprise allows them to start businesses and achieve great things, where their provincial government has all of the same powers that the Quebec government has, so that Albertans can feel that they are in charge of their own destiny within Canada. That's the hopeful, optimistic vision that we have for a stronger Alberta within a united Canada. Merci beaucoup. Les conservateurs vont travailler pour unir les Canadiens. On va aller à travers la province de l'Alberta pour partager une vision de l'espoir, une vision qui débloque leurs ressources naturelles, leur permettant de devenir l'endroit le plus riche au monde, de libérer l'économie pour que les entrepreneurs puissent grandir et engager plus de monde, où les jeunes puissent acheter une maison et fonder une famille, où les criminels sont en prison, mais les chasseurs, les fermiers, les tireurs sportifs peuvent garder leurs armes d'épaule, où la province de l'Alberta, comme le Québec, aura plus d'autonomie pour pouvoir maîtriser leur propre domaine et prendre leurs propres décisions. Ça, c'est une vision de l'espoir qui vise un Alberta plus fort au sein d'un Canada uni. Et honnêtement, vous pouvez remplacer le mot Alberta avec le Québec parce que je veux toutes les mêmes opportunités pour les Québécois et je vais prendre exactement la même stratégie envers les Québécois que je prends avec les Albertains pour leur remplir avec l'espoir pour notre pays. Et aussi, on a besoin d'un leadership qui dit la même chose en français qu'en anglais pour unir le Canada à travers le pays. I should just once again point out, though, how wonderful it was 11 years ago when there were no separatists whatsoever in Alberta, where the Parti Québécois and Bloc Québécois were wiped off the electoral map, and we were a truly united country under the leadership of Prime Minister Harper. He understood that it's the job of the Prime Minister to unite the country, and that if the country's not united, that too is the responsibility of the Prime Minister. We really should look at the situation in both Quebec and Alberta and ask ourselves how the Prime Minister is doing when it comes to national unity. Donc, je peux répéter ça en français aussi, si vous voulez aussi. Je veux juste souligner encore, avec beaucoup de fierté, jusqu'à quel point le pays a été très uni il y a 11 ans, dans les années Harper. Il n'y avait pas de séparation de séparatistes dans l'Alberta. Il n'y avait pas de référendum dans n'importe quelle province. Le Parti québécois et le Bloc québécois disparaissaient parce qu'il n'y avait même pas une volonté, un intérêt au Québec pour la souveraineté. On était vraiment unis comme un pays. 11 ans plus tard, les séparatistes qui mènent dans les sondages au Québec. Et en Alberta, on fait face maintenant à un référendum après 11 ans des libéraux. Et on est dans la deuxième année de M. Carney. Il faut se poser la question, comment est-ce qu'il fait vraiment pour unir le pays, ce qui est la responsabilité principale d'un premier ministre.
Bonjour, merci d'avoir répondu en français.
Merci.
Oui, Paul, journaliste à Radio-Canada. Ma question est la suivante. Trouvez-vous que le gouvernement Carney en fait trop pour essayer de calmer les menaces séparatistes en Alberta? Encore une fois en français et en anglais, s'il vous plaît.
Tout d'abord, je viens de dire, je peux répéter ce que je viens de dire. La responsabilité principale d'un premier ministre, c'est d'unir les Canadiens. Et je remarque que M. Harper a fait un très bon travail là-dessus. Il n'y avait pas un mouvement séparatiste en Alberta. Le PQ et le BQ, les deux partis séparatistes au Québec, avaient disparu. Il y avait un pays uni. Mais après 11 ans des libéraux, on voit maintenant que, selon certains sondages, le Parti québécois, un parti ouvertement souverainiste consacré à un autre référendum, mène et peut peut-être gagner. Et en Alberta, on fait face maintenant à un référendum. Donc, il faut se poser la question. Est-ce que le premier ministre a uni notre pays selon les résultats que je viens de mentionner?
Thank you. This concludes today's press conference.
Sorry.
Est-ce que la menace d'un référendum est la bonne manière, selon vous, de faire des gains avec Ottawa?
Moi, je crois qu'on devrait unir le pays. Pourquoi pas donner les gains à toutes les provinces déjà? Pourquoi pas débloquer les ressources de l'Alberta? Pourquoi pas éliminer la taxe industrielle de carbone? Pourquoi pas mettre des criminels en prison et respecter les armes à feu des fermiers, des chasseurs et des tireurs sportifs dans les régions de l'Alberta ou de n'importe quelle province sans devoir faire face à une menace à l'unité nationale? On devrait faire des gains pour tous les Canadiens, peu importe s'il y a des référendums. C'est comme ça qu'on devrait penser comment est-ce qu'on peut unir le pays en rendant le pays plus abordable, plus sécuritaire et en donnant plus d'autonomie aux individus et aux provinces. C'est comme ça qu'on va vraiment unir le Canada à travers le Canada avec une vision positive, une vision conservatrice qu'on va vendre pendant l'été et jusqu'aux prochaines élections. All right?
Thank
I
you
think
very
that's
much.
it. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.